course named Determinants of Quality Life. Today, we will discuss on the topic environmental ethics, issues and possible solution. Content of this modules are Introduction to Environmental Ethics, Concept of Environmental Ethics, Key Ethical Principle in Environmental Ethics, Importance of Environmental Ethics, Key Issues in Environmental Ethics, Ethical Theories and Approaches, Possible Solutions, Environmental Protection Act, Implementation and Examples, Criticism and Challenges. Learning outcomes of these modules, a student will be able to define and explain the concept of environmental ethics, including its philosophical foundations and the shift from anthropocentric to ecocentric perspectives. A student will be able to identify and analyze key ethical principles such as intrinsic values of nature, intergenerational equity, sustainability and justice, and discuss their relevance to environmental protection. A student will be able to critically evaluate major environmental ethical issues, including biodiversity loss, climate change, pollution, resource depletions and environmental justice. A student will be able to compare and contrast different ethical theories and approaches, including consequentialism, deontology and virtue ethics, right-based framework and indigenous knowledge system in the context of environmental decision making. A student will be able to propose and justify practical solutions to ethical environmental challenges, including policy intervention, sustainable practices, education, community involvement and technological innovations. A student will be able to discuss the significance and implementation of environmental legislation, especially the Environmental Protection Act, and assess its strength, weakness and real world application in the Indian context. Introduction to Environmental Ethics. Environmental ethics is a branch of philosophy that explores the moral relationship between human and natural environment. It is concerned with the ethical principles and values that guide human behavior toward environment, emphasizing those non-human entities such as animal, plants and ecosystem also possesses inherent values and worth. The field underscores the interconnectedness of all living beings and the necessity to respect and protect the natural environment for future generations. It seeks to determine how humans are to relate to the natural world, what responsibilities we have towards non-human life and ecosystem, what constitutes morally acceptable behavior in the context of environmental preservation and sustainability. This discipline emerged prominently in the 1970s as environmental degradation, climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution began raising serious moral and existential concern for humanity. Concept of environmental ethics. Environmental ethics challenges the traditional anthropocentric, that is human-centered view of the world and emphasize ecocentric and biocentric perspectives. which recognize the intrinsic value of all living beings and the interconnectedness of life on earth. It encourages humans to move from dominion-based relationship with nature to a stewardship-based or symbiotic relationship where respect and responsibility toward nature are central. Key ethical principle of environmental ethics. Intrinsic value of nature. Nature has value beyond its utility to humans. Intergenerational equity. Ethical responsibility to protect the environment for future generations. Sustainability. Using resources in a way that does not compromise the ability to future generations to meet their need. Precautionary principle. Avoiding actions that could cause serious environmental harm even in the absence of complete scientific certainty. Justice and equity. Fair distribution of environmental benefits and burden across societies and population. Importance of environmental ethics. First of all, promotes sustainable living. Environmental ethics encourages the responsible use of natural resources, supporting lifestyles and practices that meet present need without harming the environment for future generations. Encourages intergenerational justice. It emphasizes our moral duty to protect the environment not just for ourselves but for future generations, ensuring that they inherit a healthy and balanced ecosystem. Strengthens conservation efforts by instilling a sense of moral responsibility. It motivates individuals and communities to actively participate in conserving biodiversity and protecting natural habitats. Recognizes the intrinsic values of nature. Environmental ethics values nature not only for its utility to human but as something that deserves respect and protection in its own right. Inform environmental policy and legislation. It guides the creation of the fair and just environmental law and policies, ensuring decisions are made with ethical consideration and ecological sustainability in mind. Key issues in environmental ethics. Environmental ethics addresses major concerns like climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution and resource depletion. It questions how human action impact the environment and what moral responsibility we hold toward nature. Issues such as environmental justice, animal rights and intergenerational equity are central to ethical debates. These concerns guide our choices towards sustainable and respectful interaction with the natural world. Biodiversity loss, deforestation, habitat destruction and poaching have led to the extinction of countless species. Ethical dilemma, should human needs always take priority over survival of other species? Climate change, caused largely by human activities like fossil fuels, consumption and deforestation. Consequences include rising temperature, extreme weather events and displacement. Ethical concern, Why bears the responsibility? Who bears the responsibility? How should developed nations assist vulnerable communities? Pollutions include air, water, soil and noise pollution from industrial, agricultural and the urban sources. Affect not only ecosystems but also human health, particularly in marginalized communities. Raises questions about environmental justice and corporate accountability. Next is resource depletion. Over-exploitations of water, minerals, forest and fisheries threatens future availability and ecological balance. Ethical concern. It is justifiable to deplete resources for short-term gains. Next, animal rights and welfare. Industrial farmings, animal testings and hunting provoke debate about the moral status of animals. Questions. Should animal be granted moral consideration similar to humans? Environmental justice refers to the fair distribution of environmental benefits and burdens across all populations. Marginalized communities often suffer most from environmental harms, that is toxic waste site near poor neighborhoods. Intergenerational ethics. Current decisions impact future generations' ability to meet their needs. Moral responsibility includes preserving the environment for unborn individuals. Ethical theories and approaches. Consequentialism. This approach evaluates the morality of action based on their outcome. In the environmental ethics, it considers the long-term consequences of action on the environment and human well-being. Deontology. Deontological ethics focuses on the inherent rightness or wrongness of action, regardless of their outcomes. It argues for the intrinsic value of nature and the duty to protect it. Virtue ethics. This perspective emphasizes the development of moral characters and virtue such as respect, humility and responsibility toward the environment. Right-based approach. This approach recognizes the right of non-human entities and ecosystem, advocating for their protection as a matter of justice and fairness. Indigenous knowledge system. Indigenous and traditional ecological knowledge incorporate spiritual and cultural dimensions, emphasizing the harmonious relationship between human and nature. Possible solutions. Policy and regulation. Government can implement and enforce environmental laws and regulation that limit pollution, protect natural habit and promote sustainable practices. International agreements and cooperation are also essential for addressing global environmental issues. Education and awareness. Raising public awareness about environment issues and promoting environmental education can foster a culture of respect and responsibility towards the environment. This includes integrating environmental ethics into educational curricula at all levels. Sustainable practices. Adopting sustainable agricultural, industrial and urban development practices can mitigate environmental impact. This include using renewable energy sources, reducing waste and conserving water and other natural resources. Community involvement. Engaging local communities in conservation effort and decision making processes ensures that solutions are culturally appropriate and sustainable. Community based initiatives can be powerful in promoting environmental stewardship and resilience. Technological innovations. Investing in and developing green technologies can provide innovative solutions to environmental challenges. This include advancement in renewable energy, waste management and sustainable agriculture. Environmental ethics provides a framework for understanding and addressing the moral challenges posed by environmental degradation and climate change by recognizing the intrinsic values of the natural world and adopting ethical principles in our action. We can strive toward a more sustainable and equitable future. Balancing human interests with environmental protection is not only a moral imperative, but also essential for the survival and well-being of all living beings. Environmental Protection Act. The Environmental Protection Act is a key environmental law in India enacted in 1986. The main objective of the Environmental Protection Act is to protect and improve the environment and to prevent and control environmental pollutions. Here are the key provisions and example of its implementation. Key provisions are central and state pollution control boards, standards for air, water and soil quality, prevention of environmental pollutions, regulation of potentially harmful activities, penalties for violations and public participation. Central and State Pollution Control Board. The EPA established the Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board to regulate and monitor environmental pollution. Standards for air, water and soil quality. The Act set standard for quality of air, water and soil and seek to prevent and control pollution from various sources such as industries, vehicles and domestic activities. Prevention of environmental pollutions. It includes measures to regulate hazardous substances, manage hazardous wastes and control noise pollution. Regulation of potentially harmful activities. Activities such as mining, construction and large scale development projects are regulated to mitigate their environmental impact. Penalties for violations. The Act provides for penalties including imprisonment and fines for those who violate its provisions. Public participations. It encourages public participations in environmental decision making through public hearing and consultation. Implementation and examples. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. This national campaign aimed at cleaning streets, roads and infrastructure was supported by legal framework provided by the Environmental Protection Act. National Clean Energy Funds established to support renewable energy initiative and reduce the carbon footprints aligning with the Environmental Protection Act objectives. National River Conservation Plan initiative under this plan such as the Ganga Action Plan aimed to reduce pollution and improve the quality of river water. Criticism and challenges. Enforcement issues. There have been criticism regarding the effectiveness of enforcement mechanism. The CPCB and the SPCBs often face challenges in monitoring and controlling pollution effectively. Coordination problems. Lack of coordination between different government agencies involved in environmental regulation has been a persistent issue. Public participation. There is a need for greater public participation and awareness in environmental decision making processes. The environmental EPA has significantly shaped environmental policy and regulation in India. However, its success depends on robust enforcement, effective inter-agency coordination and active public engagement. Conclusion of these modules are: environmental ethics provide a moral framework to guide human action toward the environment, promoting respect, responsibility and sustainable coexistence with nature. It challenges anthropocentric worldview and support ecocentric and biocentric perspectives that recognize the intrinsic value of all life form and ecosystems. The field addresses critical global issues such as climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, resources depletion and environmental injustice. Values like justice, equity and intergenerational responsibility. Practical solutions such as a strong policy framework, public awareness, sustainable development, community participation and green technology are essential to ethical manage environmental challenges. The Environment Protection Act 1986 plays a crucial legal role in India's environmental governance, but its effectiveness depends on strong enforcement, interagency coordination and active public involvement. Ultimately, balancing human needs with ecological sustainability is not only a policy necessity, but a moral imperative to ensure the survival and well-being of all current and future life on earth. Thank you, sir.